That would be the problem. Hi, everybody who's just joining us. Bob Berdinsky here. We'll get started in a second. Thanks for tuning in. We're just after 12. And if you haven't participated in one of these before, welcome in case you never do again. If you came back, it's great to see you. If you've been at any of the Zoom conferences we did over the last month, I have caught my breath and had a shower, and for some reason I'm back at this because there are issues that just need to be discussed, and this whole post office thing is one of them. So, but thanks for tuning in. My old pal Jacqueline Day from the University of North Carolina School of the Arts is going to be a little bit of a co-pilot here, just because actually she knows how to manage the chat better than I do. So Jacqueline, Jacqueline, thank you for that.
I don't know about that.
And I guess we'll get started with some ground rules, because we have a lot of people who have foolishly said they're happy to chime in if I want to coax them into the conversation. So rather than listen to me for too long, why don't I do a little bit of shopkeeping? There's sort of an agenda on the screen there at the left. We're not regimentally going to make sure we go through those things item by item, but they're all the things that seem to me to be stuff to touch on as we were putting this together. I've become a big fan of the chat for a variety of reasons. It's a great place to post comments, especially if you don't necessarily want to talk. We still welcome any wisdom you want to share that way. If you have questions for any of our speakers, we'll try and keep an eye on what people are asking in the chat. We also love having the chat as a transcript. So, you know, any links, any other information, any vendors you want to quote about direct mail these days, I'm happy to have all that good thinking in one place. And we will share the recording, which is always my reminder to make sure that we are recording, which I think is the case. So those are the ground rules, with one more important one at the bottom there, and this is a non-partisan chat. I'm not here to advance any political point of view in this conversation. Whoever you might think is at fault, whoever you might think is an impediment, I'm just here to try and make sure we're doing the right decisions from a fundraising point of view for all the good causes that we serve. That's what brings me into this discussion. There is no agenda being advanced quietly or loudly in this conversation. Okay, that is the unusual end to our ground rules. I'm going to set a little context for the moment, just the way that I see this situation, and then I'm going to get out of the way and let other people chime in and tell me what's their thinking at their place. First of all, if you don't know, the Postal Service has been running a deficit for a long time. So this isn't a new problem. Some years this gets paid attention to more than others. But, you know, I think as Nancy Pelosi pointed out, it's not the postal business, it's the Postal Service. And implicit in that, I guess, in some people's opinions, is that whatever it costs to provide this service to everybody in the country, and we seem to have a knack for running a deficit with it too. But the deficit for the postal system isn't a new problem. It's been around for quite a while, and it's kind of a hot potato how it gets addressed and what do we do to solve it. So then, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself with my clippings here. Then this is around July 14th comes the news that memos are being circulated inside the post office, tracked back to the new Postmaster General, about some of the difficult changes that are ahead for the Postal Service. We may not be able to deliver mail on time. We're eliminating overtime. We may need to get rid of some postal equipment. And so that just became very fertile ground, right, for the timing of the upcoming election. Because of the pandemic, the likelihood that more people were going to be voting by mail than ever. So even though I think you can argue that the Postal Service is trying to cut its expenses in the way that it's been trying to cut its expenses, it's just bad timing and maybe a little bit of a bad look that all of these big changes were being put on the table right here, right now. So then after that, there was the big pushback from not-for-profits and Congress and a lot of other people, older folks trying to get their medicines, right? That, why do we need to make all these changes right now? This is the worst timing. This is the perfect storm of all these things colliding together. That caused Postmaster DeJoy to backtrack a bit and say, okay, we're not going to make any further cuts. That wasn't satisfying to some people. Said, you've already made the cuts and now we're still going to be in a problem anyway. That caused Mr. DeJoy to be brought in front of House committees and Senate committees to testify in person about what he was planning to do, and isn't this interesting timing, and what are you trying to accomplish with all of these things? And you've been following all those news headlines too. That also then led to the House passing this emergency resolution just over the weekend for $25 billion of additional funding so that we don't have to stop anything going on with the Postal Service. If you took your civics class in high school, that doesn't accomplish anything until the Senate ratifies it, and assuming the president, I think, would even sign it into law. But the Democrats will say that they did their part to keep the trains running on time with the Postal Service. So that was just recent headlines too. If you didn't know, just on Monday, the chairman of the Postal Board of Governors was also in front of the congressional committee testifying. If you want to know who's the guy who actually offered the job to DeJoy, I think it's this guy, who's the chair of the Postal Board of Governors, Robert Mike Duncan there. There's his picture, nice looking guy. And so that's all the backdrop to the funding going on as far as the budget goes. And I don't know who to believe or what to believe on if things are going to work humming at top speed, if it's going to be a car crash regardless, because there's just so much volume of mail being sent. But that's the legislative perspective as I see it at the moment, and what I've heard from the administration of the Postal Service. Okay, new paragraph. We're in an election year, right? And here's a headline from a year ago saying that 2020 is going to be a record advertising year for political campaigns. And it should be pointed out, and if we have time, maybe we'll get to this in this chat, digital fundraising is exploding. So this isn't all on the shoulders of direct mail. TV advertising is still big, but in the meantime, while we were wondering if the post office was going to be operating, everybody's turning up the volume on all their channels and all their media because it's an election year and it's a record amount of money being spent anyway. If you didn't know, the Postal Service is encouraging candidates to send their propaganda by mail. So you can find websites that are encouraging you, the prospective candidate, to use your Postal Service to send out information to your audiences and your constituents and your peeps for elections. So I think the point should be made that the Postal Service itself kind of stokes the volume of mail that's going out at this time of the year. They still want to be seen as a channel as much as anybody. And so you can find a lot of encouragement on Postal Service websites to candidates saying, don't forget how valuable the mail is to communicate with your constituent audiences. I think we should say a little bit about your vendors, the mail houses, who also may be doing an unusually large volume of business if they have a lot of political customers. And part of their warnings to you about timing, I'm sure are true just because of the volume in general, but also might be true in particular because of all the political mailing that they're doing, in this once every 2 or 4 year cycle, because of all the political business they have recruited. Good for them, but they're trying to squeeze in all of their customer needs, including ours, in sort of a limited calendar. I'll be interested in, when we get to the chats, what some of you might be hearing from some of your vendors. By the way, none of which are in on this chat, not because I don't love all of them, but just because I want to give people a chance to speak as openly as they want about the situation that they're in. Okay, so that's that point. I was ahead of the game this time, more than I usually am, and sent out a survey to everybody who was an early RSVPer to this conversation, and got 44 responses. You can see, and even knew how to portray them graphically. So if you're just curious, here's how that pie chart shook out. You can find flaws in my methodology. I'm not sure you tuned in to this chat if you were already convinced you weren't changing anything, or already convinced that you are changing everything. So I think by definition, the 60% crowd that isn't sure and they'll take any and all information they can get is not a surprise to me. But in case you're wondering, here's how those responses were. 1/4 of the crowd saying we've already definitely changed stuff. 16% saying we're not changing anything, and 6 out of 10 still sort of saying we're still in contingency planning mode, right? And if you want to know how the responses shook out in terms of all the different considerations that I thought people might have, 71% with just some general concerns about the Postal Service and its operations. Half of the respondents said the general timing of the election is reason to adjust our direct mail schedule. The likely volume of election ballots is that next one. You can see that's just slightly less than the timing of the election. Typical election year email, just the same propaganda that goes out every time around the election. All those are kind of statistically within the margin of difference, I think, as my friends at CNN would say. The geographic one down there, the 10% of respondents, I'm interested in, because I've seen articles about the swing states and the concentration of advertising there. And I'm wondering if any of you have any of those geographic considerations in the way that you're thinking about mail. Then the last one there was just any general changes because of budget problems, cuts, all the virus-related and campus-related things that we're wrestling with. The two on the bottom there were sort of write-in votes. One, I think, sort of reads, we went back and forth on the Postal Service. We're not sure what to believe is true or not true, but we're just interested in getting all the information and being as cautious as we can be. And then the last one there, I give credit, I forget who put that on, but raised the question about post-election concerns. Depending on how the election goes, and whatever you think about the result, and whatever your constituents think about the result, does that impact what the direct mail plan looks like? I wouldn't mind getting into that with time that we have too. Okay, I think that's what I have to set up the chat. I said that I made the mistake that I was smart enough to say, anybody who knows they don't mind speaking, would you let me know? And what you're going to see is the progression of people who foolishly agreed to talk about their program. I put this slide up as a favor to those people so they have any notice that I'm going to involve them in the conversation. But let's see how this goes. I don't know that all these people have actually tuned in to this chat, and anybody who's not on any of these lists who wants to speak, by all means, you're welcome too. But appreciating that we're all in, the more information we can get, the better, and appreciating that I've already now said enough in this conversation. Let me bring some of my friends here into this chat. Tracy Coleman, if you're there. Tracy was on the faculty a couple weeks ago at the Carolinas Annual Giving Conference, did a terrific job. Tracy is #1 on this list because she has already said she's not changing the direct mail plan. And in fact, her mail still seems to be arriving on time down there in South Alabama. Tracy, are you tuned in today?
I am.
So I want it stated that I am not just here to represent the people who want to change direct mail plans. I think the people who are not changing direct mail plans deserve a voice in this conversation as well. So I'm glad that you're doing this. Thank you for saying that you're kind of staying the course. Would you talk about that a bit?
Sure. We basically just ran, our campus came back online on August the 17th. Kids came back to class. And so we dropped our mail we sent it to the post office on the 14th, and in bulk mail. And I actually got my test piece on Monday the 17th. So our bulk mail is not slowing down. and we've already gotten gifts back. Not a lot. We're kind of concerned about that the response rate is not very good, but you know, so far so good. But today, just today, I'm going to show you something. This is returned mail. The date that we stamp it when it comes back to us is July the 17th, 2020. The date that we mailed it is August the 16th, 2017. So ask me this, or answer me this. Where the heck has this been for 3 years? Seriously, where's it been? I don't know. Anyhow, so I trusted the post office until I came upon that this morning. But in regards to our fiscal year end ends September 30th, and this, we dropped it a little early because of coming back to school and not knowing if we're going to be able to stay in school. So I'm actually in my office today, but I don't work it here very frequently, 2-3 days a week. Anyway, but with that said, we do have a plan for the calendar year end, and so far we haven't made any adjustments to that calendar, as in when we're pulling data and who we're mailing it to and all of that. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we'll stay the course.
Very good. And, you know, a lot of the people who sent in a survey response kind of had anecdotal information, which I appreciate and respect. So, I mean, Tracy, you can only speak to what you're seeing from your mailing, which at least at the moment seems to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. And I may reserve the right.
Okay.
Did you turn the microphone up? Okay. How's the weather?
It's not bad. We're farther east enough to where, I mean, the sun was shining today. I was afraid. Now, yesterday was a really stormy day, but I'm afraid for our Louisiana friends and Texas friends. But right now, we're good. We're good. We have a sunny day today. So.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Jacqueline, I'm getting a message that my connection's a little unsteady. Why don't I ask you and Hannah to talk about your situations, and I'm going to run and make sure my daughter's not playing Minecraft, and I'll be right back.
I can't say much because my son is watching a movie right now, so wah, wah. Hannah, I'm pretty sure you mentioned earlier in the conversation prior to everyone coming on that you're not changing either. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you have decided to keep things going as is?
Absolutely. As you all can see, I work at the Oregon Humane Society out of Portland, Oregon. So I know that we are, rather different from academia. So there are some kind of differences in the way that we do things, obviously. Our fiscal year is the calendar year. So we kind of made the decision based on a lot of different factors, and there are also just some things that I also think just make it a good decision. We put out our fall appeal at the beginning of August, and it seems to have hit pretty well on time. We had a really good response, and we don't seem to be having much of an issue with delivery time on bulk mail, so that is good. So partially it was that, partially it is that we have 2 more appeals going out before the end of the year. We have the winter appeal, which hits at the end of October, and then our holiday appeal, which hits at the end of November. So just due to the size of the project, holiday appeal is going to go to a full 100,000 households. It's pretty hard to adjust. Now, we also just have some unique factors that help us. Oregon is already entirely vote by mail. So there isn't kind of an issue of worrying about a new influx of ballots because it's the norm for us. And also, you know, we are a solid blue state, so we don't get much national political advertising. We don't get much presidential political advertising. And the advertising we get, you know, tends to be for local candidates. So that tends to be, you know, smaller budget, smaller mailing, not as much. Oh yeah, and what I did want to mention is that we are a little bit beefing up our digital presence. So we are increasing advertising. We are on social media, mainly looking at lookalike audiences on Facebook, and making sure that we have kind of this coordinated omni-channel campaign so that if you don't see it in your mailbox, you see it somewhere. And yeah, that's what we're doing.
Thank you for that. And you also remind me, the Oregon Humane Society and Hannah in particular were the first place I was ever aware of the informed delivery option that the post office now offers. In fact, I think the Oregon Humane Society was featured in a video that the Postal Service put together. And don't let me put words in your mouth, I think won an award for fundraising creativity. And that's a whole other discussion about how you sign up for that. For people who have informed delivery, you get an email with images of what your delivered paper mail looks like. And you know, if, the nice thing is it then also allows you to connect a link with your imaged mail that can take people straight to your website or any link you want. So in a way, it's kind of an end around the actual physical delivery of mail that still needs some critical mass for enough people to be subscribing to it, but I think is worth paying attention to. Anything I left out there without making this an informed delivery web chat? Hannah?
No, it's just, yeah, along with that link, you know, with our mail, we're able to design, you know, a little ride-along image in addition to the picture of the mail piece. So we're able to, you know, have something that's, you know, click here to. Usually we have it direct to the video that we produce for each appeal, which obviously, you know, you can't get with the direct mail piece. So just trying to kind of add that little extra bonus factor to it.
Thank you. And if you're interested in informed delivery, there's your authority right there. The award-winning Hannah Penfield.
well, no, it was I have to say, it was my manager. It was my manager.
Oh yeah, no, we can't steal credit from the manager. It was the Oregon Humane Society, right? Thank you for that. Jacqueline, did I miss your chat, or you haven't had a chance to go yet?
I have not yet.
Please be my guest.
So our situation is still interesting being in North Carolina. Not only are we a hot state for the presidential election, but we have a very close senatorial race and a very close governor's race as well. So we've got a lot of advertising money being dumped into the mail system right now. On top of all the text, I don't know if you guys have been following the text, but oh boy, does my phone blow up on, you know, political text right now, and non-political text too. I think I got my first spam text yesterday, so that was fun. For us, based on the information that we have, our bigger concern is the end of calendar year mailing. I'm working on our fall mailing right now. It should hit beginning of October, which is about the beginning of the political cycle. So I'm not as worried about that. Responses might lag a little bit, but since it's the beginning of fiscal year, it's okay if gifts take their time coming in, as long as they eventually come in. But let's make sure gifts do come in. But it's that end of calendar years what we're really concerned about, because like many of you, we just have that hard deadline, first week of December. That's when we want our mailing to drop. You have to make sure all the stars are aligned, your ducks are in a row, printing and everything like that. And so I actually had a conversation with our direct mail vendor. And I would recommend, if you haven't had a conversation with your direct mail vendor, I promise you they're having these conversations with their post office, because of course that concerns them as well. And she mentioned to me that they're really concerned about not so much getting it out the door, but also printing and the influx of everything. So it's definitely on their radar. And so our plan is to get everything prepared and printed and to give ourselves a few extra weeks for postage. Hopefully it doesn't land during Thanksgiving. That would be terrible. But at the same time, I mean, I think it's better to have your direct mail piece drop a little early in November than it is to drop too late in December, quite frankly. So that's kind of our big push right now for timing, is making sure that that timing is complete. And I'm glad someone mentioned post-election changes, because I didn't even think about that for Day of Giving that comes in the spring, or end of fiscal year mailings that come. I mean, this might not be just a election problem, but this could be an ongoing problem that we'll have to keep track of.
Good. Thank you for that. Interesting, the contrast. The geography really does seem to play a part, I bet, and who's already equipped for mail balloting and who's not. So
yeah, we're not a mail balloting state, and I always say, just anecdotally, I don't have anything to back this up on, but a few weeks ago, and they processed my change of address on August 7th, and it's August 26th, and I still have not received any forwarded mail from my old address. So yeah, and as someone who's rented a lot, I'm excited. My first house, so I don't have to move anymore. But as someone who rents and moved a lot, this is the slowest I've ever seen this change of address take. Usually it's pretty quick, like within a week. So the fact that we're going on, 21 days, 3 weeks now, and I still haven't seen a single piece of forwarded mail is a little concerning on my end here.
Yeah, it's a data point. Yeah, she's very excited about the house, and that's a new plant too. Erin Pollard, my old friend, is joining in, if she's here, from the University of Hartford. And she's already told me that she's concerned about the rate of mail delivery where she is. Erin, are you there? Good morning. And thank you.
I am. Yeah, no problem. So we're taking the USPS timeline kind of appeal by appeal. We did send out our summer solicitation. It hit last Wednesday, the 19th, on time. That was our target date, which in itself is its own victory to get it out on the date that you planned for 3 months ago. And by Monday, we already had 30 gifts back. So I think right now our post office is treading water, but they're doing okay. Thank you, Jacqueline. I personally have started to see delays in mail at our house. 2 weeks in a row, we had 3-day skips. So where we had no mail for 3 days, which is not common. So I think we're just starting to see the effects of some of these things in our area. Our fall appeal is slated to go out September 23rd, and that one we're keeping on our normal timeline. We're going to work really hard not to be, if we say we're getting the files in the morning, get them in the morning, not the afternoon. Because I think this will be one of those things where every day late will affect the drop date. Our fax staff is slated to go November 23, 24. Our thinking there is, hopefully, faculty and staff just made it home for Thanksgiving. They're taking a deep sigh of relief because the on-campus part of the semester has completed. They're now teaching from home for the rest of the semester. Hoping that sigh of relief helps us. That one we might have to get to the print house a little bit early, but our print house recommended for our end of calendar year that we get them everything 10 business days ahead of the normal schedule. I think that is really based on their bandwidth and capacity. I don't think that is especially USPS driven decision-wise. We have had experience with our local post office. Well, it's not the regional one, it's like the one in between the local and the regional. They have one person dedicated to BREs, and somehow, by some unfortunate miracle, every time we have a deadline, this person is either on vacation or had his appendix out. Like, there's some crazy thing every time we have a deadline. So if we need to build in extra time to make sure we get things in before December 31st, I am fine with it. I can push and prod my own team a little bit more. The trouble there is that our Office of Marketing and Communications is totally slammed with new on-campus signage and all the communications that are going out to parents and students. regents, everybody. So there's going to be some like cookies being baked and sent over there as a little thank you for editing. Send them. Because, usually they request a few weeks and we give them a few days. So there's a little sweet talking happening internally and trying to be really respectful externally.
Thank you for that. Boy, it's hard to understate the relationship with your local post office, isn't it? For anybody who doesn't know, there's a question that broke out on FundList yesterday about how much personalization you can have in a bulk mailing. And somebody was being told by their local postmaster that you can't have any customization at all if you want the bulk rate. It has to all be standard sort of brochures and stuff. And so I sent an email to MCR, who a lot of you know and some of you use as a mail provider, and that was news to them. And they are the single biggest mail customer at the Willoughby, Ohio post office. So that leaves me wondering, there was people, Craig chimed in and said that's actually is a thing, apparently, that you can't have customization. And either he's wrong or most of the postmasters choose not to enforce it. But I don't know, the plate of cookies to the local postmaster seems like a good idea to me. Aaron, thanks for that. Let's go out to California. I've got a couple of Claremont colleges tuned in, I think. Perry Radford is at Scripps College. Perry, are you there? Happy early morning in SoCal.
Hey there.
Hi. Tell me what your situation.
Let me give an update what's going on in SoCal and the LA area. So we're definitely experiencing mail delays here. I'm guessing it might just be due to our population density. In terms of political mail, there's a few swing districts in some of the areas where we do have a lot of alums and parents nearby, but the primary political mail for us this year is, I think there's going to be 16 propositions for us to vote for this year. Maybe more than that. It's in the high teens. And so that's where we're going to be competing with direct mail. And some of those do have a lot of funding behind them. So I'm sure there will be a ton of mail for those. In terms of our planning for our fall appeal, we want to get it out as early as we can this year. Early for us is mid-October. That being said, we're partially through a database conversion. It's not complete yet. It's a little bit behind. So, just getting a mailing list for a new system for the first time, oh boy, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so excuse me, things weren't challenging enough. We had to launch the database conversion too?
Yeah, and oh, and did I mention we're also implementing a new phonathon software and remotely at the same time? It's really important for us to get this mailing piece out. I am concerned about the delays people are going to experience. We do have one kind of calendar year-end piece that we have planned to do, which is really like a loyal donor or anniversary kind of piece for folks who traditionally give November, December. My hope is that would hit the first week of December. And, obviously getting our perfect delivery window right now, that keeps coming up. That's going to be a challenge for a lot of us. We generally do anniversary emails monthly, and we may end up replacing that with emails if, who knows what the state of affairs will be at that time, right? So we're trying to keep going. Our kind of past operational weaknesses are making it especially hard to be flexible right now when we want to be. And same issues with our marketing team. They are the ones for us who design all of our pieces. So if they are, totally bogged down to all this other stuff, that's going to slow us down too. So we're trying to get a lot of things moving really quickly. I am planning to have the big piece hit in October and actually go really quiet for November this year. And we also plan to do Giving Tuesday, which is not something that we've done it a couple times in the past as a giving day, not something I've always felt like was the strategic decision to do. But I think especially in light of what's going to be happening with mail this fall, the attention span, all of that. I'm hoping that Giving Tuesday will be a nice balance to whatever happens with our mail and helps us finish the calendar year very strong.
Thank you for that. That's all good stuff. You must do a fair amount of class fundraising, no, around reunions and stuff?
Yeah, we're a reunions place. So, you know, we're supposedly having 2 sets of reunions next year's, the O's and 5s, 1s and 6s. I think we're getting more skeptical about that being able to happen. What we want to do is our typical reunion class letters in February, and we're looking at doing something to lead up to that this fall. We had a really great conversation internally. I have to say, one of the things that's really great about our team is that we have a cross-functional annual giving meeting that has people from engagement, Marcom, operations, fundraisers. It's all of us. Like, we don't have a regular team meeting. We have an everybody meeting. And so we identified really focusing on the messaging about the importance of the milestone instead of the come back together, all of that stuff, since that's so up in the air. So what we're potentially looking at doing is, in terms of our reunion class signatories, using ThankView to have them do some amount of personalized videos this fall to reunion classes for the 1s and 6s.
So you're not saying the reunion word, you're saying happy anniversary.
No, I mean, it's still the reunion. I think we can still acknowledge the significance of the time that has passed, the significance their Scripps experience had on them, without having that ability to reconvene. I think it boils down to the messaging.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just teasing, but actually, I've you know, there's schools that aren't as reunion centric as a place like Scripps. You know, they're state universities or whatever. They just don't have the right characteristics. And I've often nudged them that you could be celebrating people's anniversary year if you wanted to, regardless of whether you invite them back to a reunion tent, and just see who identifies with the fact that it's been 10 years or 25 years since we graduated. So ironically, now that we're kind of challenged with virtual reunions or how long to reschedule them, you know, it's not the worst time to be trying some of this other messaging, it seems to me. So thanks for that, and best of luck in SoCal with all those propositions and that conversion.
So much fun.
Carrie Brooks Steer must be right down the road from you, at Claremont McKenna College.
We hang out all the time.
So she raised her hand, but I'm not sure she's in on this conversation. I've oversubscribed this meeting, which I did not anticipate as a problem. So there might have been some people shut out on the door, which is unfortunate, and she might be one of them.
I can mention that Carrie and the other 5C Claremont College directors, we actually meet regularly. So we kind of have a round table like this going on, and you can
confirm that the Scripps program is better than the Claremont McKenna program.
No, she kicks our butt all the time, but you know, we've got a 2-person team and she's got an 8-person team, so there's that. But we're actually looking at doing things potentially cooperatively this fall. We are kind of testing the waters for that because our alums feel such strong affinity between all of our schools, and there's so many married couples. We feel like it may be ripe to really play up our affinities with each other at a time of coming together, a really different message than something we've ever talked about.
Thank you for that. And when you see Carrie, tell her I apologize for not getting her into the conversation. Amber, are you with us from Eastern Virginia Medical School?
I am.
Hi.
Hello.
Tell us what's going on over there.
Sure thing. So I can speak to 2 things that we are doing. We have moved up our calendar year end direct mail. Typically it's gone in mid to late November. We're moving it up to the week right after the election. So that was very intentional. We're hoping things will, play out okay. We are also just trying to be really very, very flexible and evaluate everything and just try to be as proactive as we can. So we all know how 2020 has played out. That's sort of been our theme. The other thing that we changed is we also have tried to move up our phoning program. So phoning typically begins end of September. We tried to move it up to early September, but our vendor had suffered issues with the storms in the Midwest, and we just found out today that we won't be able to start as early as we had planned. We don't have a start date yet. I'm hoping sooner rather than later, but again, just being flexible.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, I'm quite sure I know who you're talking about in Iowa. And, you know, as if there wasn't enough to think about, the fact that your headquarters just got hit with the big storms they had in the Midwest. We got hit pretty well in Chicago, but it doesn't seem like anything like what happened in Iowa. Thank you for sharing that. Anything we left out?
I'll just add that we dropped our FYE appeal in mid-July, rather late. We made the decision when we started working from home and moved virtually back in March. We decided to halt fundraising. For the time being, we stood up our COVID-19 fund, switched to that, and then about in mid-May, got approval to ramp everything back up. And so we have been seeing, of course, gifts come in July and early August. And just last week, we saw a number of gifts come in for our FYE appeal. And that got us talking. Is it something to do with the post office? Well, we have an excellent development operations team who keeps track of everything. They scan the envelopes. So they've got the postage date, and it just happened to be a fluke that we had, I think it was like 4 or 5, gifts from this appeal all mail in a donation the same week. So based on when they signed they dated the check, the postmark on it, it looked to us like the post office was doing okay. I can just speak personally. I'm out in Suffolk, Virginia, and there was a few weeks in July where I wasn't receiving mail for like a couple of days in a row. And it's picked back up there. I'm seeing them, each day now, minus Sundays. So it's, I think it's just a geographical issue.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And best of luck with everything. Megan, I don't think has made it in, which is unfortunate because she's my neighbor in Chicago. So now I have to go apologize to her for not facilitating her being in this chat. And they've always got clever stuff going on at the University of Chicago. So I'll see if I can't catch up with what she's up to. Paul Pruitt is here. He's also down in Texas, I believe. And he's in the Bob Brudensky Annual Giving Hall of Fame because for years I was gnashing my teeth about what to do with Venmo and were we allowed to use it or were we not allowed to use it. And Paul was the first person I ever found who actually picked up the phone and called Venmo and asked if he could have permission to use it in his fundraising. And they said yes. And to me, that was a seminal moment in my understanding of using Venmo as a fundraising tool. Paul, are you there? Good morning. How's things in Texas? Hello, Paul. Paul's already posted questions. How can he not be here? Turn the microphone on, Paul. Apparently, I frightened him off, which wouldn't have been the first case. Paul did ask the question about is anybody purchasing a list these days for fundraising, which is interesting. I don't know a lot of my education friends who may be purchasing lists ever, but I'm interested to hear more about his question and if anybody has an answer. Paul, if you're out there, give me a yell if you get back online. Otherwise, I'm just going to move on. I think Heather is tuned in too. Heather, are you there?
There it is.
I
Oh, there.
Did I find it? Hi, Heather.
Paul, you can just wait now.
Yeah, sure. I had to find the unmute button. I was like, how do I unmute it?
Well, I'll come back to you in a second. I have to say hi to Heather. Heather is funny for me. Heather and I have exchanged messages for years now, right? That's no exaggeration.
No.
I have pleaded with her to speak at different conferences I've been a part of. Finally, we connected, and she spoke at the Carolinas Annual Giving Conference a couple weeks ago. But I've still never had a conversation with Heather up until this moment. Heather, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. So Virginia, we're proud at Virginia Tech. You know, it's day 3 of classes and we're still going strong. So every day our students are here, like it's a celebration. So when we look at what's going on in the mail, right now, Southwest Virginia is not seeing a slowdown. It's one of the things we're actively monitoring. We're about to drop our third direct mail piece for the fiscal year to just different audiences. So that's something that when we look at our metrics, we watch really carefully. And then we've got different people on the seed list. So we're taking the averages and really watching that closely. When we kind of looked at our approach, we changed our direct mail and then just our whole solicitation strategy at the start of the fiscal year, anticipating needing to have little pressure release valves throughout the year so that we were building in options and flexibility at the start rather than being like, oh shoot, like we're off course or something happened. So when we look at our strategy, we are starting to price out, do some of these pieces need to go first class? And if they do, are there certain audiences that need to go there? Because we know that 50% of our revenue comes in the month of November and December, and we can't miss that. So we're looking at that first class mail option for our direct mail only donors. And is that kind of like our insurance to see and make sure that piece gets in homes? Because if we miss November and December, our unrestricted revenue is in trouble for the year. We're also looking at reducing sizes of some of our mailings to see if that can get it to go faster, if we need that as an option. Really, our team is just trying to master the delivery of production and meeting those timelines and being unapologetic. If I need to go to my counterparts in university marketing, like everybody knows we cannot miss these production deadlines. So that's our big thing that we're doing. The only thing that I'm worried about are some of our strategies that were more related to postcards that were trying to amplify digital work. Those are some of the things that we're kind of starting to think about as, you know, we're going to do a Giving Tuesday postcard because we do socks on Giving Tuesday. And is that still the right strategy? We're going to continue with the art, but we're going to see what happens at the post office. And if things are getting slow, then we're going to yank that strategy and not do it. Other things that our team is looking at is how can we make the direct mail a little bit more efficient once the person gets it. So we've started selectively putting QR codes on the mail piece that pre-fill to the amount and designation. So you don't have to type in a URL, you just scan the little thing and see it goes in. So we're really excited. We just started it a couple of months ago and it's already starting to work really well. And then for some of our really important mailings, we're doing the prepaid envelopes. Like if we're asking our donors to keep giving to us during this time, let's make it easier. We'll ease the cost of postage just to help make sure that gift gets back. And our other thing is we're not really stopping. We're just going to keep putting more mail out there because it's the multi-channel thing. So whether you give to mail or not, I need you to see it. So that's kind of where our philosophy is. We're not going to be apologetic and we're going to keep going until the data says otherwise.
Data-driven decision-making. Who can argue with that? That's a very elegant summary. Thank you very much for that. And it's fun actually hearing you talk about your program for once. Yeah. Boy, it really sounds like kind of the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, isn't it? I mean, you have a lot of conviction that your gifts come in, you know, right at that window of time that seems to be frightening people at other places. But and I appreciate data drives the bus, right? But any sense of last presidential campaigns? I know you were at Wisconsin, I think, before you became a Hokie. But is that an audience that is reliable enough that in the face of all this other angst, they're going to keep turning out?
I think they will. I mean, I'm grateful to not be in a swing state this time around. I'm so grateful. I think we're nervous because North Carolina is coming to be a swing state, and when we look at the Hokie population, there's a big Hokie population down in North Carolina, South Carolina. So those are things we're starting to think about and at least like put on the radar. Like, ooh, like, do we need to do something different that maybe is a little bit more geographically based? Virginia is pretty solidly blue, and when we look at our our donors who give via direct mail, they're the older they tend to be the older generations, and I'm just not worried as much about them because they're the less likely to move in their political opinions. So I'm not right now today I'm not worried, but talk to me in a month, I might be worried, but
I get it.
we've got all the situation stuff. So.
I'm really grateful that you shared all that, and thank you for being here as part of this chat, and good luck with all that stuff. I want to go up to Minnesota for a couple of minutes. I think Megan is here. Jacqueline, tell me if she's not. I know Becky is here.
Yeah.
Hi, Megan, from the Carson School of Management, right in the Twin
Yeah.
Cities.
The Carlson School of Management, we are a decentralized unit. So I know Georgia is here from our University of Minnesota Foundation. But I'm going to talk specific to the Carlson School, and we work in partnership very much with our central foundation. We are, very similar to what others have added. When I was planning for the fiscal year, I took the timing of the election into account, trying to be mindful, of especially that mid to late October kind of time frame, especially when it comes to email. Minnesota is a swing state this year, and the vast majority of our alumni do reside in state after graduation. The two pieces I want to talk a little bit more on that have also been getting hit on in the chat are around QR codes. We are planning to incorporate QR codes into all of our mailings this year. We're doing some tests with more just postcards that have really, really basic direct language, a QR code, and a friendly URL. Minnesota has a system to shorten URLs, so we can do z.umn.edu/ and then whatever we want, and can direct it directly to a giving form. So we're going to try a couple of those sorts of mailings, especially with our non-donor, more like acquisition audience. I came to the U this year after being at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago for the last almost 6 years, and we did a lot of that with patient acquisition that we found to be really successful. So first time around at the Carlson School, interested to see how all of that goes. If Georgia's still on the phone, she can talk a little more to how our telefund has shifted this year, but we're trying to definitely take a really holistic view of what we can do and control, and also being really mindful of the messaging that we're using in direct mail. This spring, everything got turned upside down 3 or 4 times, and just really trying to keep in mind that the copy that I approve for print in, today on the 26th of August, 2 weeks from now, we might not have students on campus like we had planned to. So just really trying to be as, I don't know if vanilla is the right word, but really be as vanilla as we can with some of our messages, knowing that just that lag between when it's approved, when it's, printed, when it goes through the mail, and then when it hits someone's household, a whole lot can change in that really short period of time.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I thought Georgia was in a moving van on her way to Denver. Is that not?
I think so too, but she was piping in on the chat early.
Well, yeah, you can't keep her out of a conversation like this. Georgia, are you there? All right, good. We love you. Safe travels, and chime in later if you're there. And Jacqueline,
I wanted to chime in Georgia's place here. Just say, Megan, I understand where you're coming from, and I have been kind of doing the same. It's so hard when you're writing something that people are going to be reading 2 months later, when it's just like 1 week and the world could be completely different than how it was last week. So yeah, the language does have to be flexible. It has to be able to work in the future, and that is challenging.
And I'll jump in. We've been really focusing on our mission, just honing that in, this is why we do it. This is why we're going to continue to do it. Even if there's a pandemic, even if we're online, doesn't matter where we are. This is the importance. This is why we keep doing it. And that seems to be resonating a fair amount, because we did that for our Day of Giving back in June, which is the worst time for a Day of Giving. If you are ever considering it, do it. But we've been doing that, and some of the other appeals I write that I do freelance work for, we're also hitting that mission statement home. Just because it is evergreen, doesn't matter what the situation is, our mission doesn't change.
Good. Thank you, everybody, for those points. Jacqueline also reminded me, I forgot Paul. Paul, figure out how to turn on your microphone while I remind people that the chat has a lot of chat in it. So anybody who hasn't already noticed, there's almost a parallel webinar going on just in the chat room. So be sure you take a look at that and chime in anywhere that's appropriate. Okay, Paul, are you there?
This time, let's see. Did I get it to work?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome.
Good to hear you. I've been saying all these nice things about you.
Yeah, I heard them. I just couldn't push the button and say, hey, that's wrong.
Tell us what's going on down in Texas.
What's going on down in Texas?
Yeah,
everything, including getting ready for our second hurricane storm to come into the Gulf, right? So
yeah,
2 back to back. But
yeah, seriously. Good
that's
luck
just
with
the
all
weather,
that.
right?
Just the weather, yeah, in your spare time. How's the direct mail plan?
Well, it's going pretty well. So we actually, our plan is staying the same, but our plan shifted pretty much at the end of July. So we have a plan to launch a large-scale capital campaign effort to redo one of our buildings on campus for our performing arts program. And so ultimately our entire annual giving program has been shifted into just focusing on the Performing Arts Center, right, and fundraising for that as part of a public phase push for a capital project. So our initial mailing program basically just got, all the messaging got overwrote, and we're going Performing Arts Center on all of it and trying to push big and heavy to get that across the finish line. So it's partially where my question comes from for the whole buying lists.
I get it, yeah.
For us, performing arts people aren't one of our primary supporters in the past, and we didn't have an audience. So one of the things on our tactic list is to buy a list of performing arts supporters from elsewhere and potentially use it as a mailer. I'm wondering if people, especially right now with everything going on, is that appropriately timed? And we were looking at November, December for when we'd send it. So we'd avoid any of the issue with politics. But again, you don't really avoid them. They just change, right, over time.
Yeah, and anybody who has a direction they can send Paul in with lists, put that in the chat so we can give him some good feedback on that. Paul, one thing you might want to try, you can digitally, you can sort people by interests on Facebook and by zip codes.
Yep.
And so if the people in the neighborhood who are going to benefit from that, that seems to me to be an identifiable audience and a worthwhile channel these days to give a try. Report back when you have a good story to tell about that, because I want to talk about it.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for that. Becky Babineau, up in Duluth, Minnesota, may be sitting on her back porch. But let's see what kind of state she's in. Becky, are you there?
I'm here. Hi.
How are you?
Inside today.
Oh, sorry. Summer's over in Duluth, right?
Right. But sadly, that's about it. They've already started sharing on the news the fall leaves color percentages, and that's always a sure sign that fall's just around the corner. So.
And I'm supposed to be at the Minnesota State Fair right now. I'm distraught that I'm not.
You're missing out.
Yeah.
We're all missing out.
Sorry. Tell me about how's everything in House Direct Mail.
It's good. I was hoping Georgia might chime in too, since she represents the Central Foundation. But I was just thinking from my perspective this year, I just took over athletics annual giving as well, which has been something that has been outside of my annual giving duties. Athletics kind of did their own thing, but we're excited to bring them into the loop this year. But they typically in the fall would send a fall parent appeal to parents of athletes for those athletes that are participating in fall sports and, seasons got canceled or postponed. And so we made that decision to actually put those appeals that we typically would have done on hold, and instead, like for track and I'm trying to think, cross country, track, and there might be one other that is escaping my mind that will actually compete in the spring. We'll just wait to do that appeal in the spring, hoping that we're back to some sense of normalcy by then. But that, this whole situation made us change that strategy because we figured it wasn't good to ask parents for money if their kids aren't competing. So I'll get back to you on how that decision turned out. Minnesota, as I talked about at the meeting of the minds, our Give to the Max Day, our Giving Day falls on the statewide day of giving, which is November 14th. Great timing with the election. And we typically would send, we being the Central Foundation Annual Giving Team, would send a save the date postcard out about a month beforehand to all households. And both a combination of, because it's election year and budget constraints, the foundations opted not to do that save the date postcard this year, which I think is interesting. We'll probably do emails instead, but just wanted to make that note. And what else? I think I'm intrigued. I think I have to connect with Megan at Carlson. I'm intrigued about these QR codes, and I want to get on that train. And since she's doing it, I'll reach out and find out more. I'm excited to hear that. Our fall mailing, we have 4 direct mail round appeals. I'm sorry, we just adopted a puppy and he loves his squeaky toy, so I apologize if you're hearing that in the background.
That's all right.
We have 4 direct mail appeals, and so our first one does typically go out end of August, or I should say mid-August, early September. And our round 1 is on track to be sent out sometime this week, hopefully, be in mailboxes. So fingers crossed. I'm curious, because we're in Minnesota and the George Floyd incident that happened, there was a challenge put out to all Minnesota colleges and universities to create a scholarship in memory of George Floyd. And so our president created a system-wide George Floyd Memorial Scholarship, but our chancellor of the Duluth campus also chose to create one specific to our campus. And he's also chosen to highlight social justice and our student emergency needs funds this year. For the whole year, he wants to focus on that. So that's what our ask is for in our round 1. And I'm curious to see how it performs. I'm a little nervous because I don't want to politicize George Floyd, but having a scholarship in his name, we've already gotten a little bit of pushback on. I'm all for supporting social justice and reforming police and having scholarships for underrepresented students, but
Yep.
some uncomfortableness with supporting a scholarship that's in his name. And we've done some targeted asks because we were trying to seed this scholarship with some funds to get it endowed already, and then be able to go out broader to the broad public and say, it's established, it's endowed, here are these league gifts. And those league gifts were the ones that were met with some pushback a little bit. So now that we're pushing it out to the broader audience again, kind of holding my breath to see what feedback we get, if any. So.
Thank you for that, and good luck with all that. And man, between hurricanes and George Floyd and computer conversions, and it's like, how does anybody have any spare time in this conversation, right? I think Jesse and Caitlin both had to duck out. I don't know that I ever actually announced an end time for this chat. I'm still in conference breakout 75-minute session mentality, so apologies if I've overstayed my welcome in this conversation. There's one person I want to reach out to, and that's Aaron Allen, who chimed in a little bit in the chat, and who I never get to say a whole lot, but is running a great program at the University of Iowa. Aaron, are you still with us? And anything you want to, first of all, I want to hear that you're okay in Iowa.
We're all good.
Hi, it's good to see
Hi.
your face.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me coax you into this. Tell us
Yeah.
what's going on there with direct mail and otherwise.
Oh, well, you know, we're just trying to stay afloat like everyone else, not literally, thankfully.
Yeah.
Luckily, Iowa City itself wasn't hit very hard by this inland hurricane.
Yeah.
2020, thank you. Yes. But Cedar Rapids, just north of us, was hit very dramatically. And so we have a lot of people in our office and alumni and friends in Iowa who have been affected by this ridiculous weather. Should never have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is RNL still there?
I think so.
I
I don't work with them
shouldn't even
anymore,
joke
so I'm
about
not
it.
sure. I would assume they haven't blown away.
Yeah.
But our mailings are really kind of behind for lots of different reasons. We have a dean's appeal that we're being very cautious about what the deans will be saying as we're doing solicitations, because who knows by the end of October whether our students will still be on campus or won't be on campus. We're trying not to sound tone deaf. So when we send a mailing from the libraries, we want our donors to know what the libraries are doing during this pandemic to still assist students. So it's just trying to prepare for all the possibilities.
Yeah, well, good to see your face, and
Yeah, good to see you.
thinking of you guys in Iowa. Sheesh, what else? I shouldn't even ask what else, but
no, please don't.
Yeah. Okay. I'm getting lots of nice comments in the chat. I think I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. I want you to believe I did not just bring this up. I have already thought about doing in 2 weeks a next session on QR codes. This year, in all the sample sharing that I do, I got a critical mass of QR code materials. And so I've joked about QR codes for a while that, you know, they showed up and were supposed to be a silver bullet and we kind of ran them off. And now I think it's a little bit of the revenge of the QR code in a way. So stay tuned. I may have something to announce about another chat. Okay. Thanks everybody that I brought into the conversation. Thanks to Jacqueline and Hannah, as always. I love what you guys do. And be safe out there, and we'll reconvene at some point, and good luck with everything going forward, okay? Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.